if you're not growing in business, right, you're stagnating, then you're going to get left behind. We used to say, you're going to stand out from the crowd if you get certified. And now it's almost totally flipped. And now we tell people you're really going to stand out from the crowd if you don't. No matter what your budget is, you can do something.
Christine Kane, welcome to Changing the Business of Golf. Christine, in this series, I asked my guests to talk about 3 things that they would do to change the business of golf for the better. Before we get into that, let's find out a little bit about you and also Audubon International. And just tell us a little bit about Audubon International and what you do, particularly in the golf space.
Well, we have a big mission. We do a lot of things. I hope everyone will remember at least this one thing, which is that we work to create sustainable environments where people live, work, and play. So we have specialized, if you want to say that. We realized that a lot of property was owned by businesses. And today we're talking specifically about golf, which is, of course, you have to have a lot of property to play golf. But there are other types of entities, resorts, corporate office parks, schools, colleges, et cetera, who had been totally left out of this discussion. And so we really wanted to focus on bringing them into the sustainable efforts. And so that's how we do that. So that's where we get people wherever you live, work, or play. And we of course do education, a lot of educations. We have technical assistants. We have very talented people on our staff, but we also offer sustainable certifications if you want to be acknowledged for the work that you do. And of course, there's we feel very important reasons for that, because the more you're an example to other businesses or the members of your club, for instance, you can influence how they're acting in their own personal lives, or to become more supportive of what is happening at your golf club or resort property that has golf, for instance. So we try to have a number of different certifications that it's all voluntary. We try to meet people where they are. We don't want, budgets to be a problem. And you realize that sustainability is a journey. So we want to meet you where you are, and then we want to help you continue the journey with other types of activities.
And your journey into golf and Audubon International, where did you start?
I spent pretty much my whole career in the nonprofit world, and in a lot of it in the environmental field. And I've spent a number of years actually taking a little to the left to learn more about philanthropy and how to do fundraising, which is, of course, the backbone of nonprofit operations. And when I felt I had gotten the knowledge that I needed, I really just wanted to come back to the environmental field. So that's why I ended up at Audubon International.
Tell me what you think, but it feels like we're at an important turning point in some ways. Post-pandemic, golf has boomed. Participation, demand for golf has grown extremely strongly, and it's maintaining that level of demand. People seem to enjoy and appreciate the benefits of not only playing golf, but being in the golf course environment. And at the same time, there's increasing pressure externally on the way that golf courses are managed and the way golf courses are perceived in the way they steward the environment. So there's both challenges and opportunities at this moment in time.
That's exactly right. We noticed, I guess if we could say that there was something good that came out of COVID, it was a much more positive awareness of the benefits of golf, because it was outside and you could still interact with people and get your exercise in or get out of the house. And so that has drawn a lot more people to the sport of all ages, and women and men and young people, and we are seeing a boom. What that also provides us is a great opportunity now, since we're talking about changing the business of golf, of changing the way that we talk about and involve sustainability in the business of golf. We have a great opportunity now in front of us, I think, to recognize still that golf is dealing with some long-held stereotypical beliefs, that we now have the opportunity and an almost entirely new audience to begin to bring this information about that those stereotypical ideas are not correct at all.
So there's a challenge and an opportunity to shift perceptions, but also I guess there's a point here about looking at the customer and what they want, and they want to be engaging with sustainable things or products or services.
Yes, I spend a lot of time trying to keep up on demographic trends, and we see a lot of connections throughout the industry, and we've been working a lot with the golf course focus, and we're trying to help the golf courses bring it into the clubhouse aspect, the entire property, which is where we're beginning to try to bring forward the awareness that the next generation of workers, the next generation of golfers, the next generation of club members are Gen Ys, Gen Zs now, and they have really grown up with this completely shifted mindset around the environment and environmental responsibility. I've been here almost 10 years at Audubon International, and when I started, we used to say that you can stand out from the crowd with a certification. We do sustainable certifications. And now we say you're going to stand out if you don't have it, because those folks who are coming into golf now, who are joining their families, maybe who are already members at clubs, they just want that. They just expect it. They're sort of shocked when it's not there. And this is a great opportunity for us to change the perception of golf, to really talk about the environmental responsibility that is already present and can be made better, but already present.
Well, let's get into some of those changes you're recommending.
Okay.
Christine, your first change for the business of golf is to build sustainability into every operational decision. Tell me a bit about that.
Yes, as we touched on very briefly before, we have been focused a lot on the golf operations of the property. And we are now seeing an opportunity, as we mentioned, with this growth and new members and new perspectives on golf that are coming, that we think it's time, and the push, if you will, is there to bring this into the operations across an entire country club, golf resort, whatever it may be, because not only do we have the ability to improve the actual land management, but we have the ability to improve what's happening in the clubhouse, what's happening in the food and beverage area, what's happening in the immediate environs, the driving range, the gardens, the parking lots, etc. And there's a lot of aspects that maybe aren't necessarily considered as part of sustainability, which is building it into the culture of your club, from everything that's forward-facing to your members, to the larger community, but also interior in your food and beverage areas with your purchasing guidelines, in your recruiting to try to get new employees, also potentially in new members, because these folks are looking for a connection. They want to have they want to work where they can feel personally good about it. So being out front with the efforts that you're doing and, walking the walk, not just talking the talk, is something that we have seen, and there are some studies beginning to be done that are showing that it has a real impact and can be very positive.
Well, you make an interesting point there, and I guess one of the definitions of sustainability, and it's a very, very simple one, is people, planet, and profit. Just a simple way of thinking about it. There's that delicate balance between those issues. And you were talking about the people aspect there. And the people aspect of golf, I guess, are not just the customers, it's the staff and the people. I was filming recently for the Green Report in southern France at Terre Blanche, where actually the engagement of the local community has had a positive impact in terms of resourcing from staff, and people who are coming from outside are going back out to their communities and saying what a great job they're doing with the environment. So
That's right.
there's a two-way flow there. And I guess there's a way of thinking about sustainability, putting it on the balance sheet of the business. It's something you can't afford not to do.
That's right. So that's the triple bottom line, right, that you brought up there. And, a lot of times I'll get questions or do other interviews where it's like, well, what's the return on investment on sustainability? And there are certainly, dollars and cents sorts of returns. If you're doing this, then you're going to have that. If you're going to naturalize areas, you're going to have less fertilizers and inputs, and we do less mowing. If you're going to put pollinator gardens in, then you're going to create opportunities for more biodiversity on your course, for instance. All those kinds of things, which are relatively easily figured out. But when you get more to the people part of it, it's much harder to put a number to that. It's more of a sense, SENSE sense, not dollars and cents. And what we're trying to really bring people to, or get people to think about, is that we have to understand that testimonials, for instance, are, as we all know, the best way to, whatever it is, sell a product, get new members, get new workers. And so also for golf, that is still dealing with these old, out-of-date stereotypes. So the first time there's some kind of, we'll say, an environmental problem, if it's a drought, it's the golf course using too much water. If there was some sort of pollution event, it was probably running off from the golf course. Those kinds of things. And so to have people out in the community that can say, no, it can't be them because they have reduced their irrigation water. They have water saving devices everywhere. Or, I saw the reports for the IPM policies that they use and practices that they use. You can't beat that for turning away that sort of finger pointing that we all deal with.
For a club looking to put sustainability into every aspect of its operations, what are the sorts of things it can be thinking about and doing?
Well, there are, of course, a number of things you can do, both out on the course and in the clubhouse, and we could spend a lot of time talking about those things. But since we're talking about changing the business of golf today, I think one big change that is worth considering is hiring a sustainability point person for the organization. And that would allow them to focus on all of these disparate parts, what's happening in the kitchens, what's happening on the course, what's happening in the parking lot, what's happening if you have swimming pools or if you have summer camps or whatever at your thing. You've got one person who is keeping their eye on all of those things, preferably not also trying to do other jobs. So maybe it starts out as a part-time role, but that would really put it on the map. As we talked about incorporating it into the culture of your organization, it shows you value it, right? When you put something in the budget, then it becomes a reality. So I think that if someone is really wanting to make a commitment, wanting to, whether it's just, a business thing, they see the trends coming, whether it's some of it or all of it is a personal need to do it, that could be the one way to really put your flag in the ground. We're talking about golf. So put your flag in the ground that this is important to you and your club, and you're going to really get behind it.
And there are ways of putting measurements and evaluation and KPIs behind that, because there are savings to be made. Okay, there's the investment perhaps in that person and their time, but that can be part of the plan, can't it, to put those KPIs in place?
Absolutely. And again, we talked about how it's hard to measure sort of some of these things. Again, you can look at your inputs, you can look at your labor, more efficient use of labor on the courses, for instance. But if you make it part of your recruiting and you're asking the questions of your applicants, or you're asking them to consider that as part of why they would want to come to work at your organization, you can begin to track how fast people turn over, or hopefully don't turn over. In your employee satisfaction things, you can ask those questions so you try to get a little idea if they feel better about working at your club. A lot of our clubs, they're in markets that have multiple opportunities for people. So if somebody can join 3 or 4 or 5 clubs, then maybe they're going to join your club because you speak to something in their heart, or they just feel, for instance, that their kids are going to be somewhat safer at your club because of the practices. You're not applying so many things. So you never know what it is that's going to resonate with someone, so you have to cover all your bases.
Christine, your second change for the business of golf is creating partnerships with non-traditional partners. Explain what you mean.
Well, I think that, again, in the sustainability world, there's a lot already happening in golf, but we're really only kind of talking to ourselves about it. And we have to get more comfortable with non-traditional partners. It could be anything from, a watershed group in your area. It could be a birding group. It could be the schools, the local schools. Just thinking a little bit outside of the box about, again, we want to get rid of those outdated stereotypes, and we talked about how the best way to do that is to get those people out there and have them understand what it is that you're doing. So you're building your support in the community. So heaven forbid there's some issue and you need some support, you've already got it. We often get calls from our members about some issue and they would like us to help them with it. And we do the best that we can. But when we talk about, for instance, if they're one of our certified members, do you have your certification on your website? Are you incorporating it somewhere within your clubhouse? Or is it on your scorecards? So that you're constantly reinforcing that message. If there's a club newsletter of some kind, are you putting some articles in there about that? You have to talk about it before you need it, so you have that support.
And you make a great point there, because it's often around crisis moments, points of crisis,
Exactly.
where it really happens, and that could be water, or it could be flooding, it could be the opposite of,
Right.
of those things.
Not enough water or too much water?
But
Right.
you're right. Clubs are very good at speaking to themselves and not really going beyond the gate or the high hedge that surrounds the property. So that engagement with the community to win support, so people can understand what's going on, and they might have a best management practice manual to show people, so the community can understand what's going on. And I guess that's what you're
Right.
talking about.
Yes, you can, again, have regular columns. Many properties have marketing divisions or someone that they hire, a consultant. I speak a lot of places, and someone will always come up to me afterwards and say, "You mentioned XYZ Club. I do all their marketing. They told me nothing about this." So, and with social media and 24/7 news cycles, we need content. Everybody needs content. And this can really help fill those needs for that and get that message out there in a proactive, positive way, as opposed to a crisis situation where people hopefully have the time to think about it or digest it, or even just go, I didn't know that. And then when you need that, they remember that fact and then they're on your side.
What's the risk of not doing this? What's the risk of not engaging externally with your local community?
So the risk of not doing these things is, as again, how it changed business. If you're not growing in business, right, you're stagnating, then you're going to get left behind. And if you are looking at the dollars and cents of things, which of course everybody does, right, you're running a business, unfortunately, it's probably not going to be cheaper to do these things if you wait longer to do them. So you could look at it as an opportunity cost. Also, you're going to increase your opportunity cost if you don't do something now, and you just say, "Oh, I'll get to it in 3, 4, 5 years," or something like that. You don't know where your course is going to be in relation to other people and other courses in your market. But you will probably be behind on these kinds of things, and it's just going to be that much harder to try to catch up. Whereas now you could lead. And that's really where we always want to be, right? We want to be leading. We don't want to be following.
What about golfers themselves?
Golfers are our most natural advocacy group, and we are not doing a good job at talking to golfers about sustainability. And there's a number of initiatives and programs within the golf industry that are focused on new types of turf grass, green speeds, even golf shoes and clubs. So we're immediately drawing them into the technical aspects, but we're not giving them the information about the environmental aspects. And if we want to have a community out there to provide testimonials about us, to help us fend off incorrect ideas or old stereotypes, we should definitely be reaching out to the golfers directly to do that.
And how do we go about that?
Well, there's a number of ways depending on, the courses, staffing, budgets, marketing needs. But, it can start with very simple things like information in the pro shop, information on the scorecards, having signage on the course about why an area is a naturalized area, why bluebird houses are important to have along the course. But to, have, if there's a newsletter, to have a little bit more talking about, the stormwater management that happens for the community on the course, or different recreational opportunities. There are courses, I think, now that are getting more comfortable with opening their property to like walking groups at off times. So those kinds of information in a newsletter, those people to learn about not, the real details of the new irrigation system, but, the percentage of water that's been reduced, the percentage of energy that's been reduced because of more efficient pumps, et cetera. There are certain ways to get that information out without really making it too technical or unfortunately boring.
And I think on that point, from a communications perspective, on the one hand, there's information, but ultimately we want to move people. We want to make them proud.
That's right.
And by making them proud, then they become advocates and share that information.
Exactly. Yes, we want to tell stories. We do want to touch them, right? And I think that the feeling of making people feel proud goes back to ingratiating it into or incorporating it into your culture of your property. And that is where we can have, I feel, one of the biggest impacts. We have to do all the work. We have to make sure we're doing what we should be doing for all of the various reasons, from it's the right thing to do to it costs less money. But we want to have our members, we want to have the golfing public, we want to have the greater community stepping up and talking about what it is we're doing in a way that makes them proud to be able to talk about it.
Are there any examples of clubs or courses that have done a really good job of turning things round, and perhaps have become extremely proactive? I happened to be at Collier's Reserve down in Naples just before coming here to Orlando and GCSAA, and that was your first signature sanctuary, Audubon signature sanctuary, and they're going for their platinum standard. Now, that strikes me as a very, very good example. They're very good at engaging with their community. People are interested in what's going on. And I think people are even moved there because of that.
Yeah. Well, Ken and his team are amazing. They are doing really incredible things. For instance, people may not be that familiar with, there's something called biochar. And it is succinctly creating an environmental resource out of products like wood products that normally would have been thrown away or composted or something. And then it can be put to a number of uses on the property. And Ken has really become knowledgeable and efficient about different ways to use that. And he has not only used it in terms of soil improvements, but also water quality improvements. So it's, there are certainly lots of applications for things. And he just, in his case, he has a great team. Soil science is kind of his thing. So he went deep on that. But you don't have to, if you don't have the budget, you can, maybe biochar is not your thing, but you could talk about naturalizing areas, particularly out of play areas. We have courses who also do that. For instance, there's a course in Colorado that has kind of flipped the general idea about managing shade and turf around, in that generally now, if there's a problem maintaining turf under shade, it's usually they cut the trees down, or they at least trim the trees. And at this particular course, they've decided to get rid of the turf. It's an out of play area, so that if they were using fertilizers and water irrigation to try to grow turf there, they don't have to do that anymore. That they're putting naturalized plantings in there, and so that's going to increase the biodiversity of the area, provide a better home for some of the plants and animals, reduce, hopefully, drought-tolerant plants, that kind of thing. And so when people, it just goes to show that no matter what your budget level, no matter what type of property you are, a private club, a public course, a day use course, you can find something to do. You can find multiple things to do. And we're happy to help you and to encourage you to keep going.
And as you say, coming back to your original point, creating partnerships with non-traditional partners.
That's right.
Getting that local bird group in, or getting the local conservation body in, and helping you provide those data points. And it's also a point of credibility. And that's going to be the next point, your third change for the business of golf. Christine, your third change for the business of golf is for courses to seek third-party validation. Tell me about that.
Yes. Well, we, of course, think it's very important. It is what we do. But it's a little bit, as someone said to me recently, you can't mark your own homework and then expect everybody to take your word for it. So it's important now that that everybody begin to understand that we're at I think, a real tipping point with, the industry itself is already doing good things. But the industry is only talking to itself. And we have to start, as we said, with non-traditional partners. We need to put it out there. We need to prove and stand behind what we have accomplished. And the best way to do that is to have an outside group, a third-party validator, us, hopefully, but potentially there are some other groups out there that do groundwater pieces or wildlife pieces, who can come in and go on site to validate what has been reported, what has actually been done. We work with various regulatory agencies occasionally, whether it's mostly at the state levels. But they are looking for ways they're looking for proof, just like everyone else, return on investment, whatever it might be. They need to know that things are being done properly, continuously, and the best way to report that, or hopefully maybe to head off, more intrusive efforts, is to have the data to back up what it is that you're doing, to have another organization who can come in and do that review for you, that has the proper technical backgrounds and experts in their fields who can go out and make these visits and these reports. So you have something that you can present it to your members, you can do a press release about it. But it's going to be very important, if God forbid one of those situations happens, that why is the water quality down in XYZ Creek? Oh, it must be the golf course. And we know that it's often courses that are certified with us, the water is often better when it leaves the course than when it came onto the course. So if you have that type of information, then you can stave off those sorts of finger pointing situations.
And you're talking about filtration there, and particularly in urban areas where golf courses are quite often where they were out of town 50 years ago, they've now been kind of subsumed into the town and serve a very important role. But also, I wonder if the level of the number of detractors for golf, the outside pressure coming in. This is a risk and a threat to some golf businesses. So this is not just a nice to have. Just having a logo on the sign or on the website, that's good. But actually, you need to go further than that, and perhaps even engage with policymakers in your locality.
Yeah, unfortunately, it wasn't too long ago in California where there was a bill at the state level to take state-owned golf courses and turn them into housing instead. And we, along with a lot of other groups, weighed in on that and sent information. But, golf looks like easy targets sometimes for these types of sweeping changes. And again, to have the information on the benefits of golf courses in urban areas for heat sinks, for stormwater management, for water quality management, for outdoor recreation, for intergenerational connections. Golf is one of the few sports that you can play your whole lifetime. And when you're a grandparent, you can be out there with your grandchildren and you can all still be playing the same game. There's not a lot of sports out there that can say that. So these are the things that we're not recognizing and that we need, we are recognizing perhaps, but we need to talk about them better and we need to think about them within the topic of sustainability.
And I wonder what role the superintendent has to play in this. A number of people on this series have suggested as one of their changes that the superintendent should sit in the leadership team, which makes logical sense because often almost always the superintendent is the expert. They're the person with the finger on the pulse and the numbers and the data. And I remember we shot a film in Arizona last year. We spoke to the Arizona Alliance for Golf, and they found themselves in the position where they were actually advising the local government. They actually became the source of information to proactively inform policy. And actually, it was the superintendents who were really at the forefront of that. They couldn't have done that without the superintendents. So there's a big job to do there. And for some people, that might mean stepping out of a comfort zone and becoming the expert and becoming the leader.
Yes. Actually, one of the, all of our certifications involve that we require that you have to do outreach and education. There's a lot of reasons behind that. But this is one of them, right? Is you have to be able to tell your own story. You have to be able to get out there and educate people about what you're doing, why you're doing it. And there's so many more ways to do that now. And again, we have some supers who have enough staff that they can have an assistant work on something, or they have a marketing department, so content for social media is handled. But then you have somebody where it's just the superintendent and one person, or a superintendent and maintenance person. So it's, there's a lot of levels of what you can do in there. So we have to be realistic about who has the capacity to really lead this. As we said, everybody can do something at whatever level is comfortable for them, but we really have to get to the point where we understand that it's a necessary and required part of the job.
Christine Kane from Audubon International, thank you very much for sharing your changes to the business of golf.
Thank you for having me. It's been great.